Hello, and welcome back to They Bleed Pixels. Today we'll be going through the second chapter of the second dream. Every dream after the first dream will have 3 chapters, usually with their own overarching narrative. We buried the book at the beginning of Dream 2, and we had a level last time in the caves, and now we're in the forest. The forest area is full of sticky goop everywhere. Well, slippy, not sticky. Slippery. It is extremely slippery and is basically like ice physics in other games. It is notably not ice, because there's nowhere in this game that's particularly cold. But it works like ice, and is actually a bit stronger than ice physics you'll find in most other games, so it takes some getting used to. This very first room, before we can even set a checkpoint, has 3 of the 6 pages in it. So we'll need to get those before we can properly move on. To get this last page, we need to use this bomb imp to open the lever, but I missed. And I set a checkpoint, so I can't even go back and try again. So let's restart the level. I stood still a bit too long and automatically set a checkpoint. Thankfully, we're right back at the beginning. It's not the end of the world. Fighting on the slippery physics is not something I ever recommend doing if you can help it. If possible, anything on the slippery areas that you need to get rid of, just throw into the spikes. It's far and away the easiest way to deal with them. Trying to fight them with your claws is difficult at best, and I don't recommend it. Pixels slides around way too much to properly attack enemies on the ice, and it's just a trial of errors. Alright. Sometimes, if you cannot make a jump, it's best to give up and not even try. Just go back. So this time we got it. So we can set a checkpoint now, where we have all 3 of the pages. First room, basically completed. As you can see here, even the mildest impacts send pixels flying across the ice. The enemies too, they just go everywhere. The main way to deal with anything on the ice physics is to use the terrain to your advantage. Don't fight anything legit if you can help it. I'll actually be avoiding some enemies in this level because they can be difficult to deal with. The main trick to ice in this game... got him. The main trick to ice in this game is that when you jump and land at a neutral speed, you'll always start sliding at a very predictable and very safe walking speed. Which means that minor bunny hops to reset yourself make the ice much easier to handle. Now, I should have probably set a checkpoint at the beginning of this area, but I didn't. Keeping a checkpoint on you gives you that purple aura, and while you have that purple aura, all of your combos get you more blood, which is more points. So if we're going for A ranks and S ranks on levels, keeping your checkpoints longer can be helpful. However, I find it better to make them as often as I can, because it is very easy to make silly mistakes in this game that instantly kill you, because there are spikes everywhere. So let's set another checkpoint. We don't need to hold on to that. Because up here is the first section where the squiddy things are actually a threat. I mentioned last time that they are the worst enemy to deal with in the game, and this is part of why. There are many sections where there will be fairly tight platforming, where you have to navigate through a tough spot, but there are squiddy things everywhere to make things difficult for you. We made it through there without too much difficulty. Getting this page will prove a little harder. The trick is, you just need to duck onto the ice and slide into the page and get it. However, if you don't duck quick enough, the spikes will instantly kill you as the ice slides you into it over and over. So I gotta just land at a neutral speed, so I do the predictable walk, speed, slide, and we get the page. Now, one of the big tricks of the ice physics in this game is that a lot of enemies will actually... There will often be spikes and other things around to throw enemies into when you have to fight them on ice. Like the saw blades up ahead, or the spikes in the ceiling here, or the ones right behind me that this guy pushed me into. and then killed me with, and killed his friend with. Combat can be a little tricky, and it's often easier to just completely ignore enemies if you can. Although that doesn't get you enough blood to set a new checkpoints, but I'm sure we'll be fine. 1 hit point is all you need. Especially since I can just juggle these guys for plenty of blood. Now this next section is very difficult, so I'm going to collect a little bit of blood and go back and set a checkpoint. Recently, this game was played on a speedrun for AGDQ this year, 2015. And the developers were on hand for commentary. They mentioned that there are 3 particular levels where, according to the Steam achievements, a lot of players stop playing, and this is one of them. This is the first real hurdle in difficulty in the game, and while they can't check which segment made most players quit, I would assume it is this one. There are squiddy things, there are saw blades, there are spikes, there is ice. And it is a fairly long segment where you have to go where you cannot set a checkpoint because you cannot set a checkpoint on the ice physics. You need to stop moving to set a checkpoint, and it is impossible to have 0 movement while on the ice. It will always have you moving. And there's a page here to collect. So this segment is a bit difficult, to say the least. I went back to try to set a checkpoint, and I fell a little too far. I should have double jumped sooner to save myself. So let's just try rushing through here. Now, as I mentioned before, every stage is in 3 separate, or every dream is in 3 separate parts after the prologue. And during each part, the background changes to something else. In this case, we have a forest, where before we had the cave system. The general interpretation, and the one that makes the most sense to me, is that the book is basically returning itself to the Claude girl up in her room, no matter what she did to it. In this dream, we attempted to bury the book, and now it has crawled its way out of the dirt, and it is going through the forest back to the school. The third part of the dream will be somewhere else. It will no longer be in this forest, and we will see it when we get there. It might be less that the book is moving itself, so much as the Claude girl is retrieving it in her dreams and must return it along these paths. It looks like it was a lot easier for her to simply bury the book in the waking world than it was to retrieve it in the dream world. She is making things harder on herself, perhaps. But I can't blame her for trying. Now, the main thing that makes the squiddy things difficult is that once they start their dash attack, they cannot be harmed. They are invincible to all things except saw blades and spikes, which will still kill them if they fly into them. They are thankfully not too bright. Oof, that was close. They are not too bright, but they are very fast, and they will follow you anywhere, through any platforming segment. And through the rest of the stage, basically, until they hit a spike or get trapped on a wall somewhere. The squiddy things have a very long attack pattern, and will attack you horizontally from very far away, up to half a screen's length, I believe. And Pixels herself is a bit tall, so they can be rough. Thankfully, we're through, and that last area gives us more than enough blood to set another checkpoint right away. Which is good, because there's a little bit of a boss fight here. Now, this game doesn't have any proper boss fights. I wish it did. That would be great. But they like to introduce new enemies, especially in the first few levels, with these sort of boss rooms where you get rushed by a bunch of them, and you must fight them. The sword imps here are going to be a recurring enemy for the rest of the game, just like the squiddy things. And while they aren't too tough, they can block most of your attacks and can only be hurt in the air. The final page is behind the end of the level, which brings us to the end of Chapter 2 of the Second Dream. Next time, we will finish up the Second Dream and wake up once more.